Hello, everyone. My name is Allan Dick, and on behalf of my fellow co-founders, Scott Silverman and Veronica Sonsev, as well as the rest of the CommerceNext team, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today is Wednesday, August 16th, 2023, and our topic this week is Understanding Shopper Psychology as we get ready for Black Friday and Cyber Week. Before we go any further, I'd like to welcome and thank today's speakers. We've got Stephanie Urban, the Vice President of Direct to Consumer at Camuto Group, Andrea Moore, Chief Digital Officer at Nest New York, Sucharita Kodali, VP and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research, and Mary Kate Cash, the Head of Growth Marketing North America at AB Tasty. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you as well to AB Tasty for sponsoring today's webinar. We could not bring all of these webinars to you without the support of our sponsors. It's been a real pleasure working with Mary Kate on the webinar. We appreciate her and AB Tasty supporting our educational content. I also want to thank the CommerceNext staff, Maeve, Robert, and Scott, who are all off screen helping to make this webinar a success, hoping that I don't have any technical issues this week. And most of all, I want to thank you, the audience, for joining us today. Here's a programming note for you before we get into everything. We're going to take a break for 4 weeks, but we'll be back on Wednesday, September 13th, with Innovate to Accelerate, how encouraging new ideas can ignite revenue growth. Now, this webinar features Rima Reddy, who leads Commerce Ventures. They're an early-stage venture capital firm, as well as Rachel Moore and Tim Christensen, who are leading the innovation charge over at Synchrony. We're still working on a speaker lineup, and we'll announce the retail panelists once we confirm them. In the meantime, you can sign up using the link that we just posted in the chat. Before we move on, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the intersection of controlled combustion and shameless self-promotion. We want you to follow us on Instagram, and we're willing to buy your digital love in the form of a Mesa Solo Stove. Perfectly designed for backyard and urban settings. I can attest to that. I love my Mesa. Mesa is a tabletop fire pit that brings light and warmth to any outdoor space. Enter to win one of these beauties by following us on Instagram and liking the most recent post. We'll randomly select one person after the webinar is over as our winner. Now, pro tip, now is the time to enter if you want a chance to win one of these stoves. John Maris, the CEO of Solo Brands, generously agreed to donate 5 of these, and this is the last one. Now, speaking of John, you can see him over on our YouTube channel, talking with Phoebe Bain, the senior reporter from Ad Age, about how, in an era when many DTC brands are struggling, Solo rocked it by growing 28% last year to exceed $500 million in revenue. It's a 20-minute talk, and it's well worth listening to, and it is part of the CommerceNext YouTube archive. Our YouTube channel is over 330 videos covering topics including acquisition, retention, leadership, technology, and so much more. 50 of these videos are from our June conference alone. So there's plenty of fresh knowledge to catch up on and for you to tap into. Click on the links in the chat to watch John's talk or to visit the YouTube channel to learn more. All right, here's today's agenda. We have not one, but 2 quick presentations. First off, we have Sucharita Kodali discussing the Vibe session and what it means for Q4 2023. Love that title. I'm so stealing that name. And next up, after that, will be Mary Kate Cash with a strategic personalization with emotion. Just 2 audience polls today, and then at the bottom of the hour, we're going to have our panel discussion with Camuto Brands, Forrester, Nest New York, and AB Tasty. Here's some housekeeping notes. Don't worry about missing anything. We're recording this webinar as we always do. We'll make it available by tomorrow, most likely by tonight. And let me just take a moment to share where things are on our screen. Now, for those of you that are new to the webinar series, let's take a look at a moment to review the functionality tabs at the top right of your screen. There are 4 tabs: Chat, Q&A, Polls, and Handouts. Please use the Chat tab when you want to communicate with other attendees, shout outs, hey, where are you calling in from? Use the Q&A tab when you want to ask the speakers a question. That's when we'll be monitoring for that. The Polls tab is where you can participate in the polls and review the results. And the Handouts tab is where I'll have today's presentations and other good material for you to download. One important thing to remember, you can show your interest in a specific question by upvoting it. Now, this really helps us prioritize which questions to present to the panel. And I'll take this moment to say, this is an awesome panel to ask questions of. I am more than happy to not ask my questions and ask your questions if you show them to us. So please think of this as your in-house technology panel, your in-house panel of experts that you can ask questions of. And finally, if you're watching this on the replay, please note that the handouts are available by clicking on the highlighted document icon in the video player. Alrighty, with that, I want to introduce Sucharita Kodali. She's a VP and Senior Analyst at Forrester Research and is here today to discuss the Vibe session and what it means for your Q4 2023. Let's welcome Sucharita. Sucharita, how are you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much, Allan. Thanks for having me. And I am not the only speaker ever on those screenshots. They have, yes, CommerceNext always has amazing speakers. So hopefully everybody tunes in regularly.
As they should. As they should. Sucharita, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you. So I was trying to think about what's the best analogy for what I'm about to say. And I think that what I settled on was, imagine that you are headed on a road trip and the weather is clear and everything seems like it should be going in your favor. So you should have a fast ride. But what happens is that you end up hitting a lot of traffic, and there are a lot of other people also headed in the same direction. And what really ends up being the biggest challenge isn't that there are external factors that you need to worry about, but rather just the typical factors of the time that you've selected and kind of the circumstances of driving, and the fact that there are a lot of other people often headed in the same direction that you are. So keep that in mind as I walk through the next few slides. So when we are looking at the state of the economy, and this is why I call this a vibe session, is that many of the economic indicators actually suggest that we're in a good place, at least in the United States. We have record low levels of unemployment. So this is 60 years of US data, looking at the percent of unemployment. And as you can see, the last few years have had three of the six lowest years in history in the last several decades. And then along the x-axis, you have our rate of inflation. And while in 2022, that number was alarming, as we all know, that number has normalized and it's sort of in an average range right now. So when you combine these major economic indicators, like are people out of work, wages being as high as they are, overall retail spend being as high as it is, it's really, really hard to justify why we are constantly, why we have been and why we continue to keep talking about this imminent recession. And when we step back and look at, well, what could be driving some of that negative sentiment. I've talked about this before. I talked about this actually at a CommerceNext keynote a couple of years ago, and it's still very much true, which is that often our consumer sentiment is connected to what we hear and see in the media. And certainly the fact that we are constantly inundated with news, that social media enables us to get more and more of that news in a timely fashion. And often it is intended to reflect whatever is going to generate the most rise out of us, which we know is often alarmist stories or things that tend to create panic or anxiety. That's kind of in no small part correlated to these negative consumer sentiments. So just some data points here. This is University of Michigan's data that they've been collecting over decades on consumer sentiment. And not surprisingly, the troughs of black, which are consumer sentiment, are lowest during recessions, but we also saw it really low in the last few years. And then not surprisingly, the red dotted line, which is the negative media stories, they almost track, it's almost exactly a one-to-one correlation that as the news stories are negative, the consumer sentiment is negative. Now, the good news here is that some of that negative consumer sentiment is improving. That's where that black line on the right side is going up, and we're also seeing fewer of those bad news stories as well. So hopefully that's a positive indicator. But kind of at the very least, the biggest positive indicator is that those major economic indicators of employment, wages, those are strong as well. We also have what people are actually saying with respect to spend. So while they may be more uncertain about the state of the economy or how the US overall will fare, they themselves individually are expected to spend more in 2023 than they said they would in 2022. So this is just what I thought was interesting. So we asked consumers in a Forrester survey, what do you expect to do this holiday season? Are you planning to spend more or less? And what I like to look at is the top line, which is those who expect to spend more, and subtract the third line, which is those that say they want to spend less. And interestingly, in 2022, this data would suggest when you subtract, kind of line one, you subtract, kind of line three from line one, you get a net negative number. That number is net positive in 2023. So that should be a good sign. Now, interestingly, even in spite of that 2022 net negative number, we still saw sales online going up by a double-digit percent growth, which was in line with the levels of growth that we saw even before the pandemic. So this is Forrester's estimates of what holiday spending has been online for the last several years. And we define holiday spending as the spending in e-commerce in the months of November and December. And in 2022, that figure, as you can see, was up 14% over the 2021 numbers. And this is even, as I said, in light of the number of consumers who were a little leery of how much they were going to be spending. So I expect that 2023 numbers, we haven't released the 2023 projections yet, but I would estimate that the numbers should be at least as strong from a percent growth standpoint, if not even a little bit slightly stronger in 2023. So that's the good news, is that a lot of those high-level economic indicators are strong. People are saying they're going to spend more. And the trends that we saw last year don't seem to be flatlining. We're headed in a positive direction. However, I also think that it is important to recognize that just because the overall sector may be doing well, as an individual retailer, not everyone will be faring quite as well. And there are a number of factors to consider, particularly now, that we didn't have to consider over the last few years. For one, is that we are seeing tremendous spending growth in sectors like services. And as part of the services sector, particularly as it relates to consumer spend and discretionary spend, there are three areas within services in particular that I want to point out. One is travel, both domestic and foreign. The second is entertainment, and the third is eating out at restaurants. And all three of those are among the categories that consumers say they are most likely to spend more in 2023 than they had before. And, kind of they're more likely to spend more than the percent of people who say that they're likely to spend less. So this is where the competition is. And when I made that reference to all those cars headed into the same direction, it is that even though you have positive economic indicators, the skies look clear, there are a lot of sectors all fighting for their piece of the consumer pie. And many of them are actually gaining share at the expense of other discretionary retail. You may have noticed Target's numbers that were just released for Q2 today, and they were softer than you would expect. And there's no doubt that some of that softness isn't because kind of anything in particular that Target may be doing poorly, but rather just that their core shopper is going on vacation and watching Oppenheimer and Barbie versus actually using some of those dollars to purchase in stores, which is what that shopper may have done in 2021 and 2022. So what does that mean for you as a merchant? And the key things that I think are the takeaways are that the core principles of what drives retail hasn't gone away. And a lot of the elements that were so important in 2019 to focus in a hyper-competitive environment on the things that matter most to the shoppers that are down the purchase funnel or ready to buy are as important now as they were before. And when we go and ask shoppers the latest data on when are you planning on shopping during the holidays, or how important are deals to you? These are things that continue to resonate with consumers and that they say are the drivers of what they purchase and when. So we know that a third of consumers say that they plan to shop online on Cyber Monday, and that's just one day. The number that say they'll purchase on Black Friday or Thanksgiving weekend is just as high. So that means that these key dates still matter. More consumers now say that they care about deals and specials in 2023 than they even did in 2022. And we know that in 2022, a lot of those deals and specials, remember, were due to over inventorying. Now, consumers just expect those deals and specials because the environment is just so competitive, and they have more things competing for their discretionary dollars, like in the entertainment and travel sectors. So in 2023, 57% of consumers said they expect and they're looking for deals and specials versus only 44% in a similar survey last year. So pricing and promotions matter. Free shipping continues to matter. It's the number one reason that consumers will choose to purchase online. Still, this is like the kind of the same thing we've been saying for 20 years, but it has not changed, and free still is more important than fast shipping. Yes, even today. And then we also hear a lot about returns. I know there's been a ton of focus on the returns sector and how that is becoming a more expensive cost center that retailers are trying to navigate around. But it's also important to recognize that it's essentially a cost of doing business, and it's more important as a merchant to try to adjust some of those returns rates to the degree that you can through data and making sure that your product descriptions are as strong as they can be, or better targeting maybe loyalty programs and returns flexibility around certain types of consumers versus offering blanket, very generous returns programs. So because easy returns are still a key driver of conversion still. The last thing that I just want to point out is we have been talking a ton about generative AI, and I thought it would just be interesting to share a little bit of the data on what percent of consumers were almost in November, it'll be a year since the release of ChatGPT to the general public, and where we stand now, and we've done kind of monthly polls over the last few months, that it's in the 20 to 30-ish range of percent of people who say that they have used generative AI at all. So just keep that in mind as you think about generative AI applications. This suggests to me that it may not be a tremendous tool from a consumer standpoint, but there may be opportunities from a back office facing standpoint or from a business optimization standpoint. So with that, I will hand the virtual mic back to Allan.
All right, Sucharita, that was great. Even after seeing your presentation, I actually have a couple of questions I want to ask, but I'm going to save that for the panel discussion. All right, let's keep this thing moving along. Sucharita, we'll bring you back in a little bit. Let's bring up Mary Kate. Mary Kate Cash, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for sponsoring this. I'm going to let you get right into it. We're going to be talking, you're going to be talking about strategic personalization with emotions. You got some strategy, some tactics. It's all on you.
Great, thanks. My name is Mary Kate Cash, and I'm the head of growth marketing at AB Tasty, and I'm really excited to dive into this topic with you all. Today, we're here to talk about strategic personalization with shopper emotions, and in particular, how you can leverage this for Black Friday and Cyber Week. I don't want to waste your time here, so I don't think I need to explain to everyone why Black Friday and Cyber Week, or weeks as it's turned into, are important for retail brands. That much has been very evident over the past decade or more. And if you're curious to read more about these stats, you can download the slides and take a closer look as to what's predicted to be up for grabs in 2023 and what we saw as a result of 2022. And Sucharita just covered a lot of it as well. And we already know, and Sucharita just talked about this too, that it's very competitive. It's a very competitive market for a lot of sectors. And in that market, providing a great digital experience can and will set you apart from your competitors. And it's required today if you want to have a successful Black Friday. Now, when we think about what constitutes a great digital experience, personalization is the best way to move the needle for you. Consumers crave interactions that feel personal, but again, we all know this. This has been evident in the industry for many years. Customers want you to approach them as an individual. So what I really want to talk about today is how to get strategic with personalization. Everyone knows it's important. You know it, your competitors know it. So the real question that we want to answer is, how can you do it better? And this is precisely where shopper psychology and emotion come into play. These tools are going to allow you to create experiences for your customers that really feel personal. There's a lot of stats here, and ultimately what I want to underline is that people do not rely on logic and reason as much as you might think that they do, or that they even may think themselves when they're making decisions. They really feel their way to an answer based on emotion and psychology. The stat that I find astonishing here is that you feel an emotional reaction to something 3,000 times quicker than you form a rational thought about it. And these are the levers that we want to pull on when trying to think about using personalization to drive growth. So the understanding of the role that emotions play in customer decision-making is not a novel idea. I am not coming to you saying that this is a new thing that we've invented and you should be touching on people's emotions. Leveraging shopper psychology has been around in marketing for forever. The big issue at hand is the cognitive dissonance between brands and consumers, where 80% of executives feel like they understand the emotional needs of their customers, but only 15% of customers really feel like the brands are doing a good job of meeting those emotional needs. And now we're going to get to the part about how we can actually bridge that gap between what you feel like you're doing well as brands and where consumers feel like retailers are falling short. When we think about what motivates customers, we know that they can be, broadly speaking, placed into two buckets within a larger wheel of emotional motivators. We'll call them individualistic versus pragmatic for the sake of this presentation. And what's important to understand here is that certain people who might lean more on the pragmatic versus the individualistic, depending on what they're shopping for, or you might find that certain products tend to have a lot of people that are seeking understanding over comfort. For example, if you think about a large purchase or a heavy financial investment like buying a new laptop, people will approach those purchases differently than when they need to make a purchase because they need to replace their kid's lunchbox. So you can use these buckets to understand if you have larger segments that appear for certain products or during certain times of the year, like Black Friday, when people start shopping for loved ones or making purchases that might carry a greater emotional meaning than normal. You know, we talked about this earlier in the slide with all the stats. Emotions drive decision making. So that's the entire customer journey, is a series of decision points. So why do we click one thing and not another? Why do we react differently to one variation of an A/B test over another? Why do we prefer an image that has the product versus the image that has the product on the model? And that answer is usually based on an emotional reaction. It's those gut feelings and instincts that hit us 3,000 times quicker than a rational thought. Now let's get into some specific examples where we have had customers put this into action. So for these two specific segments, we've got people more on the individualistic side that are looking for safety. They want to know that their payments are secured. And then on the other side, we have a group called the immediates, who are people who just want to get to that complete order button as quickly as possible. And these are the people who use the buy it now button on Amazon, which to me sounds very, very scary personally. And for each group, you'll see an increase in conversion rate because we've tailored the experience to meet those emotional needs by showing all of the card types that are secured for the group that's seeking safety and removing any information from the page that the immediates would consider unnecessary. Here we've got another type of segment comprised of people who are fueled by competitiveness and another group of people who, again, are looking for immediacy. And for the people who are fueled by competition, they look for customer reviews. They respond well to testimonials, to star ratings, and social proof. And that additional information is more likely to motivate them than the segment who is looking for immediacy. They just want to get straight to the point. They want to get to that checkout button quickly, and they don't want anything else in their way that might slow them down. Again, for both of these, we see an uptick in conversion rate because we've added the testimonials for the competitive segment, and we've streamlined the view for the immediacy seekers. And lastly, here's another way to personalize. And in this case, it's on the product detail page. We've got two segments. One is looking for safety and another is looking to understand more. And this retailer has shortened the product copy for the safety first folks because data shows that they don't like complex descriptions. And we show more detail about the garment for the group of people who want to understand fully what they're getting themselves into. Details like, do you need to dry clean it? Can you just throw it in the wash? How can it be ironed? What's it made of? And all those additional details. So for both, again, you'll see an uptick in revenue per visitor because of these personalizations. And that's all I have for today's examples. But if you want more, we've got a handout that's available in the downloads. That's 30 tests that some of our customers have run for Black Friday or other promotional periods that you can download. And I've also got my contact info up here if you want to talk more about shopper psychology, emotional segmentation, or if you have any questions. And thanks so much.
All right, brilliant. Mary Kate, thank you so much. Audience, we're going to hit the polls here in just a second. I'll reiterate what Mary Kate had to say. Definitely want to hit those handouts. There's a lot of useful information up there. Both presentations are there. Some other tactical and strategic white papers are up there. Very good information. Also, now is very definitely the time to get your questions in for the speakers. If you have any questions on the presentations, let's get those in if you have them. And let's move on to our poll questions. First off, real simple one. Discounting is going to be big, right? Always seems to be. So first question for you. Relative to Q4 2022, what's your approach to discounting going to be in Q4 2023? Are you going to A, discount more than in 2022, B, discount about the same as 2022, or are you going to discount less than 2022? So the results are coming in. Discounting is about the same as 2022, 57%. At first, it was split evenly between discounting more and discounting less, but apparently it looks like the numbers are coming in 57% discounting about the same as 2022. Some of you are discounting less, that's 28%, and 15% are discounting more. All right, good question. Thanks for taking the poll on that one. Let's close that one out and move to our next one. Next one is going to be about our next webinar, Innovate to Accelerate, How Encouraging New Ideas Can Ignite Revenue Growth. The question we've got for you is, which of the following best describes your organization's approach to innovation? Proactive innovation, so you have a dedicated innovation team, you're really focused. What we would call occasional innovation, yeah, we implement innovative solutions, but we're maintaining current operations is really the primary focus. Constrained innovation, hey, it's a priority, but resource allocation is always a challenge. Don't have time, don't have the money, don't have the people. External innovation, do you rely on external partners for innovative ideas? If so, let us know. And limited innovation, you don't actually actively pursue innovation. It's great when it happens, but it's not a core or a principle of your company. All righty. Oh, very interesting. I wasn't expecting this. Proactive innovation. 41% of you would categorize yourself as having a dedicated innovation team. See, more data is coming in. So it's 33% there. Occasional innovation is 25%. Constrained innovation is 33%. Yeah, is never enough, right? External innovation is 6% and limited innovation is 3%. All righty. That is closed. And finally, before we get into the panel discussion, I want to remind our audience of a question we asked a few weeks back, because this is going to come up in discussion. We asked you what macro factors were influencing your Q4 2023 preparations. Now, the top answer that you gave us was looking at consumer spending trends and economic forecasts. The next most popular was looking at what your competitors were doing. And the third was looking at your own internal data. And I just wanted to remind the audience and share that with our speakers. I thought it was interesting that the economic data is at least to our audience last week, was the prime driver of how you're thinking about Q4 of this year. Alrighty. With that, let's bring on the panelists. Alrighty. Hey there, Mary Kate, Sucharita. Thanks so much for those great talks. Andrea, Stephanie, how are you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for joining us today. I know everyone's super busy. Andrea, let's start with introductions. Mary Kate and Sucharita have already introduced themselves. Andrea, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little about your company. Stephanie, then we'll have you answer.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Moore, Chief Digital Officer here at Nest New York. I'm responsible for our e-commerce business as well as our large 1P Amazon business. And Nest New York, we sell fine fragrance and home fragrance, and we're pretty widely distributed. So direct to consumer, Amazon, plus specialty stores like Sephora and Ulta, department stores, and boutiques all over the country.
All righty.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Urban. I'm the Vice President of Direct to Consumer for Camuto Group. So I'm responsible for all of our e-commerce and marketing functions for Vince Camuto brand.
Awesome. So let's start at a high level. And Andrea, we'll start with you again. When do you start planning for the holiday season, and kind of what are the key things you're doing to ensure that your team is ready to roll for the holidays? I'll start with you, Andrea.
You know, the best time to start planning for holiday, in my opinion, is January. I mean, I think you really got to start with things fresh in your mind from the year before, what worked and what didn't, and how you want to move things forward for the new year. On our prep call, we talked a lot about how all the things that you do leading up to Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday week, really help you prepare for Thanksgiving week. So we use all the promotions we run, all the holidays, et cetera, to really help us build into that.
Stephanie?
Yes, likewise, we treat Cyber Week as our kind of Super Bowl event of the year. So it does start in almost the year prior, making sure that you have a really clear playbook across all channels and functions, including customer service and fulfillment, and making sure that that's shared internally for both visibility, but also cross checks. And then leveraging a really deep hindsight of Q4 as you start opening the books and planning into how you're going to comp yourself year over year.
I thought it was, so I knew this was, because we discussed this before, I kind of knew those were going to be your answers, which is why I displayed the information from the previous webinar where we asked folks, what are you thinking about? And it seems like the data that you're using, that kind of self-reflection, internal data as your primary driver, was the third ranked one. And I just found it just interesting that the two of you were kind of looking at that internal data first and then macro and competitor data secondly. Was that surprising to you to see that data come through, that people were kind of waiting for the economic forecasts? Because I think it's kind of self-evident that one would start internally and as early as possible. Stephanie?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a little bit surprising it came in as number one, just because we do kind of start creating our foundational calendar based on previous timeframes. But I think it also impacts how we think about it. Like, it was interesting for me just when we did that poll about who's planning to discount more or less. I'm actually surprised it was only 15% saying that they're planning to discount more this season, just based on the competitiveness that we've seen this year. So, tidbits like that do help make decisions in real time. So I think that is a little bit of a layer that could either be seen as number one or two in planning.
When we talk about the actual plan, and with Andrea saying, well, we got to start this at the beginning of the year, and Stephanie is essentially agreeing. When you get to the point where you're in it, like, when do you consider you're in the season? Like, when do you go from like we're planning for it to we're in it? Stephanie, when is that date?
I would say
roughly?
For us, I would say once you're actually in full-fledged planning, you're almost essentially in it at that point. So for us, that's this month. We just kicked off more detailed holiday and content planning in the month of August. We'd had touch points kind of leading back up to that. We have not yet done our re-review of the Q4 hindsight yet, but that will probably happen in early September as we start to lock kind of promotional dates, shipping dates, gift guide launch dates, et cetera. So I feel like we're almost in it right about now.
Andrea, how about you?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, once you're past Labor Day, it's really about the rest of the year, right? I mean, we set our festive products around mid-September, which feels very early. We don't actually start marketing them until October, but they start to become available for sale in all of our channels around mid-September. And so, the gun sort of goes off once you get past Labor Day. And, I've said this a million times, my team is probably so sick of hearing me saying it, but like, to me, it doesn't matter where the sales come in the fourth quarter, as long as they're coming in. And so we really look at how things are trending really from that mid-September point all the way through till the end of the year.
I thought it was interesting when Sucharita was saying, maybe you want to dive in on this as well, but you said that 57% of people plan to watch for sales, and that was a 13% increase over 2022. Yet we see the seasons starting earlier. So now it's almost like we've got this large cohort of consumers that are starting to shop early, but aren't going to, like, they're going to look for that deal, and they'll wait until that deal hits. Do I have that right? And if so, like, what's the retailer response? Do you discount now quick to get those sales in, or is that too early? Because I'm just curious. Sucharita, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that this idea that the consumer loves a deal is not new, right? I mean, this is something that is as old as time, and we know that that's going to be an important lever, and it's always a last minute lever that's very effective. If you're not hitting your numbers, you can always increase the number of promotions, increase the depth of the promotions, and the time frame that they're offered. Now, in terms of how early do you start discounting, I think that what the data seemed to suggest, even your data, Allan, was that I don't think that the poll data is that people have a plan now. They want to ideally stick to their plan. And, I think the majority said they were promoting for the most part the same as they did in 2022. I think they're going to stick to their plan until it's clear that they are not hitting their plan. And if they're not hitting their plan, then it becomes, let's be more aggressive around Thanksgiving. Let's be more aggressive in the months of December. But rarely do I see people, throwing in the towel as early as like early November or October, unless all of 2023 has been so soft that they're just, or they have so much inventory that they're ready to just discount super early. I expect that you'll see more of that discounting later in season, not earlier.
Mm-hmm. Mary Kate, any thoughts on anything you've heard so far? What do you?
Yeah,
bring you back into the conversation.
I think there's also something to be said for understanding the buying behavior of your audience. You might be able to tell in your, depending on if you have like a CDP or a data warehouse, or we even have some audience segmentation capabilities where we can show you people who pretty much only respond to you when you're running a sale, or if they have a coupon code, or they only shop out of your clearance section online. Those people, are going to wait until they see the best possible price. They're very price motivated. You also, especially if you're a prestige or luxury brand, have a segment of people who don't really care. And those are people who you might expect to, or could potentially be, I would say, more on top of their shopping. They're not going to necessarily wait for Black Friday. Oh, this gift would be great for this person. I'm going to go ahead and buy it, because they're just, for whatever reason, maybe they have more expendable income, or are more motivated by getting their gifting done than by waiting for the 15% off coupon. So you can tailor your strategy for those specific audience segments, or just look at last year's data, if you have that data, to start to better understand when you might be able to market to those groups of people.
All right. So quick,
what I think is interesting about this, though, Allan? Like, it's plus 13% to last year, meaning people are waiting for deals. I think last year there were still a lot more starts back to the vibe session and back to the hype in the media, a lot more hype about supply chain problems. You better get it early. You better run out. I don't feel like that's quite the case anymore. And so now people are sort of like, well, I can sit back and wait and see what happens and pick and choose the deals I want to take advantage of. So that might just be a change in the trend.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was thinking that the UPS strike might have, like when people, like retailers were anticipating to be a strike, you've got to prepare for other carriers. It doesn't come to fruition. When we asked the question, the UPS strike had been resolved. Nobody said on the retailer side they were concerned about shipping or logistics this year in a way they were in the past. But I think that lingering from last year and the consumer side is there. I definitely agree with you on that. Sucharita's nodding. Yeah, I'm seeing the nod. So I think that's a great point. Got a couple of questions coming in. I encourage people to ask them. I want to hit these quick. Mary Kate, there's one for you. Not certain if you can answer this, but when you show less details on the product, do you have data on if this impacts return rates? And if anyone else has any commentary, and feel free, it's not Mary Kate does not be thrown into the fire on this one.
Yeah, the short answer is that I don't have any data on that. I would have to ask the particular retailer. My assumption, and big asterisk there that this is an assumption, is if you have categorized that person correctly, that their return rates should be average. It should be the same as any other segmentation. But again, I don't have the data to back that up. And if I don't know who asked the question, but if you want to email me, I can try to track down the answer from that retailer for you.
Yeah, that's great. If you can't get a hold of Mary Kate directly, you can get a hold of me and I'll make certain Mary Kate sees it. All right. Some questions coming in for Sucharita. Let's see here. And we're not going to go down the generative AI rabbit hole, but I want to be respectful of the audience questions. Aside from consumer adoption of generative AI, what can we expect, or can we expect to see more retailer use of it this holiday season? If so, what applications? Interested to hear what the other panelists have to say as well. We will take a brief foray into generative AI, and then we're coming right back. Sucharita.
Yeah, so I'll keep it short. The two use cases that I've heard retailers being excited to embrace the most, first is a marketing one, and it's like auto generation of marketing copy. It could be, just different types of copy for email. It could be different copy for your search ads. So that's really the big thing. And a lot of it seems to overlap with a significant part of what Mary Kate talked about. And the second area is within the IT team and leveraging Gen AI for code generation and code auditing. So that those are the places where I've heard the greatest interest.
All right, very good. Thank you for the question. This one is from Natalie Brown. Yay. Sucharita, do you have any additional data on returns and a question of free versus easy? Are consumers expecting free and easy, or are they okay paying any reasonable expenses as long as the process is easy? I would think Andrea, Stephanie, and Mary Kate may have a perspective on this, but Sucharita, you go first again.
Yeah, and would love to hear Stephanie and Andrea's points of view on this too. From the data that we've seen and everything that retailers have shared, the consumer typically wants free. They don't want to return and have to pay anything. Now, the ease, so if you have to pay and it's easy, that's typically still a no-no. Which is why the cost of doing business is you subsidize it, you push as many of the returns to the store as possible, and you reduce the friction, everything from not having to force the packaging or making the receipt come back, to support the return, and the timing for the refund too. The speed of the refund is key for shoppers as well.
Stephanie, what are your thoughts on returns? I know we chatted. I was going to hit it anyway, so we might as well just address it here that Natalie brought it up. Stephanie?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure the consumer is expecting free, shipping and returns ideally, but not everyone can do that just yet. But I think it's also been interesting to watch more and more return-oriented vendors kind of pop up over the last 2 years, and vendor solutions to help accommodate that and make the processes smoother for retailers. So definitely worth investigating. Like Happy Returns, I think is a really excellent returns experience. It allows you to bring your apparel returns back without even having a box or anything, kind of drop them in a box, and then they handle the fulfillment details back to miscellaneous retailers who are part of that. So I think that's something to watch, and something we're interested in, as well as I think Tucker Nuck and Rent the Runway both separately have rolled out easy return pickups. So instead of having to go to FedEx or UPS as part of your to-do list, they offer that they'll pick up your returns at your doorstep. And that is also, I think, excellent customer experience and something that we would be interested in looking at in the next year or so too.
Any other thoughts before we move on? Going once, going twice? All right, great question. All right, so Douglas Mapes, another name familiar to the CommerceNext community. Thanks, Doug, for joining us today. Are consumers being trained to wait for those deals because retailers are chasing Q4 sales? Have we trained them? Yeah. Yes, we have. I would agree. Anyone disagree with that? I mean, it's a combination of circumstance, and everyone's been doing it. So yeah, Doug, you got a quick answer on that one.
I think too, like you're really fighting for wallet share, right? So if you're not discounting and your competitors are, you either have something that's that's super hot, like Barbie merchandise, or something that's exclusive, is going to run out, like a Supreme drop, or you're in the pack with everybody else and you've got to be competitive just to get the focus, just to make sure your brand stays relevant. So it's a slippery slope for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the cost of doing business. I think that's really, there's no way around it.
Well, it was interesting because we were on our prep call, we were talking about, when is the money being spent? Like, when is the actual rubber hit the road? When is the buy button actually being hit? And what are your guesses on this? Because I know, Andrea, you had a perspective on this. You were like, it's this day. And everything after that is pretty much the remnants.
I feel like we set holiday, we talk about holiday earlier and earlier, and consumers keep buying closer and closer to need, because we can get things to them faster, because they have confidence in return logistics, because they know they're going to be coupons and discounts. And so I really do think people sit back and wait unless there's an element of scarcity. I think there was a stat about what percentage of sales happen Thanksgiving week. I mean, I'm down to the last minute. I'm like, the cobbler has the worst shoes, right? So I'm always down to the very last minute, but I do think people try to be locked and loaded by the end of November.
Yep. Mary Kate, any perspective from AB Tasty on when people can expect this? Sucharita, Stephanie, you can jump in.
With the brands that we work with our customers, there's so much in the lead up to Black Friday. I think it's like Andrea said, where that is D-Day for all intents. It's the Super Bowl for all intents and purposes. And, we're a tech company, and that's when they need all of their technology to really work. So that's when, we're pushing for that big day of really heavy sales. And then anything after that is icing on the cake. So for us, that's been our experience. But I know, the days have started earlier. Cyber Week is now 2 weeks. And so that timeline is getting stretched out a little bit, but I don't think we've seen a consistent timeline the past couple years to really have it's the week before and it's the week after. I think it's still kind of shifting and fluid as to when people are willing to say our promotions are starting now and we are ending them 2 weeks later, where just compared to a couple years ago before all this Cyber Monday stuff, it used to just be this one day, Black Friday.
All right, I'm going to ask one more question about the timing, and then I'm going to shift gears a little bit and get back into some of the questions that we had developed pre-show. E.S. Shulak was asking, last year's Black Friday Cyber Monday promotion started at least a week before Thanksgiving in our category. Now they're in jewelry. Do you think promotions will start that early again this year? I would think the screaming answer on that is yes. Yeah, I mean, we pretty much hit that. All right, I want to talk. I want to bring it back to the emotional aspect of this, and this is what Mary Kate directly addressed and the 30 things you can do, 30 tests you can do handout is there, and I'd strongly recommend downloading. I thought that was a very strong handout. Sucharita, kind of obliquely mentions this. I'd like to talk to Andrea and Stephanie about what are the emotions that you are using? What emotional levers are you pulling on or pushing back on to help drive holiday sales? Stephanie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So obviously gifting being a huge strategy, and talking about our gift guide and really creating 360 content to support that throughout the season. And for us, when I'm saying season, that I'm mostly speaking to November, in that whole lead time up to Christmas. And then also exclusivity and limited quantities. So we have a line actually that's called Atelier. It's our Made in Italy collection, and it's just higher quality materials, really beautiful colors, and a little bit differentiated from our other offering on vincecamuto.com. And some of those products are up to 3 times more expensive than our other product lines. And yet she just loves it because there's that fashion FOMO moment. And, she feels like she's getting something special because we're really only making a few of each of these pairs for her. So she has something that no one else can have. So playing up on that, and also creating that new audience of this higher customer lifetime value client has been really successful for us.
All right, Andrea?
I mean, I think that's an awesome strategy, the combination of going upscale plus FOMO. I mean, I think that's a really winning combination going into the holiday season. I mean, we have a lot of gift giving, being the brand that we are, and a lot of our focus is on the gift that's like the number one gift of the season, the can't go wrong item. And we put a lot of sort of firepower behind this key hero scent and product. And that's kind of been our main focus. That has been a winning strategy for us.
Yeah, you had mentioned that earlier about kind of sticking with your winners, Andrea. Like part of your strategy was to kind of like, what I liked about yours was kind of stripped down strategy. Like, we're going to focus on the winners. We're looking at this thing daily. We know we have plan A, we got plan B, and we got emergency plan C. Like, you're just dialed into what you're going to do, and you're just not going to be distracted from it. And I thought a good takeaway for the audience was, hey, if you got a winner, play it. Just play it hard and make certain that it's working. So I thought that was a good idea. And I love the limited edition FOMO. That always works. there's very definitely
having the inventory, right? Which is why I start in January, because depending on what you're making, it may take you a while to have the product. And so you have to decide what you're going to go big on. I mean, some companies produce loss leaders that are holiday items that they can put on the front table or whatever, So it's like, you've got to know what you're leaning into, and then you can build everything around that. Your marketing strategy, your investments, your inventory, all of that.
What are the other plays there? Is there a loyalty play? Is there a personalization play? Is there do you offer like your club or your loyalty members, exclusive access? Is this a play that's better? Like, is this better in the holiday season, or is it just part of the normal arsenal and we just kind of play to it year round? Is there anything unique about like a loyalty or personalization play for Q4?
I think there's. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sucharita.
No, you go ahead, Stephanie.
Oh, I was just going to say, I wouldn't say it's necessarily different for us during holiday time frame. There is kind of an always on element to that, but I would say another thing that helps, I guess, kind of drive emotion, but is just our influencer activations, because those influencers are able to really speak to their specific audience and following in a way that resonates with them. And they're talking about in a really genuine way what it is about our product that they love. And so I think that, draws new customers in because maybe they hadn't heard of our brand, or maybe they hadn't seen that specific pair of shoes, but when they're following this influencer who they know and trust over time, that's just a great acquisition play. So building influencer into the holiday strategy in a deeper way where it's not just promotion focused is also important.
Sucharita, you had something to say here.
Yeah, in my observations, retailers, of course, all need to go big in Q4. So there's a reason that you often have a lot of just batch and blast campaigns and these massive, huge offers that are everywhere. But this idea of personalization or loyalty is still under leveraged in Q4, and it's a huge, huge opportunity. Like some of the biggest things that we saw over the last few years that have really been working are things like kind of that scarcity with personalization, in particular, the pre-sale leading up to Thanksgiving. So like Nordstrom is like the king of this. Is like, even before their annual sale, they'll give like the advanced look to, a percent of their loyalty program. And, even like the top tier gets an advanced look even before that. So that kind of thing absolutely works. And you can also often extract higher margin, when you do that. And that's a good win-win. So that addresses your point earlier, Allan, about like, kind of should you discount early? And my thought is like, absolutely not. In fact, kind of if you can personalize more, that's probably more effective.
Yeah, great point. Any other thoughts? It's just we have 4 minutes. It's like, where does this time go? Because there's like 3 or 4 other great questions here. I'm just going to bang them in here. Stephanie, when we were talking on the panel discussion, you wanted to ask the panel and the audience, and feel free to jump in on the chat on this audience. What are you doing to keep your teams engaged during the holiday, especially with remote teams? I'd love to hear some thoughts on that. Andrea, any ideas there? Or Stephanie, do you want to define the question more?
Oh, sure. I mean, quick definition, essentially, obviously, all of our teams in the e-com space are more busy and more stressed than usual during this Q4 timeframe because there's so much work going on. So what can we do as leaders to keep them engaged?
Andrea, you had some thoughts on that when we chatted about this the other day.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to like really dialing out the noise and staying focused on what's most important. And for us, we know like what percentage of our year happens in Q4. We know what percentage of our year happens Thanksgiving week. And that really is our main focus. I mean, we do all the preparation for the whole quarter, et cetera. But like once we get through Thanksgiving week, we can really start to sort of let things sort of materialize as they happen. Not that we still are not pedal to the gas, but I try to really keep people geared up for that week. And then after that, we can sort of get a little bit back to business as usual. So I try not to make it like the 12 weeks of Christmas, right? More like the key 12 days of Christmas,
Right. All righty. We had one last question from the audience. Again, I want to be respectful of them asking questions. This is for Sucharita. Everyone else can kind of key in here. Given how 2023 started slowly with retailers being concerned, how do you think more retailers will beat their forecast compared to 2022, which was the inversion? Will concerns earlier in the year impact inventory availability because of cautious buying? What are your thoughts on that?
So my hunch, and even in the conversation we had the other day with Andrea and Stephanie, is that I think that a lot of buyers are thinking about 2023 pretty independently, and kind of a lot of the planning is based on how they themselves individually are seeing things trending. So I don't think that there's going to be this massive pullback in inventory availability because systemically people think that Q4 is going to be terrible. In fact, as we saw, Q4 in 2022 was strong. All the indicators are that 2023 should be strong. So as a buyer, I would think that everyone is going to just plan for that higher number and purchase inventory accordingly. And hopefully we run into no supply chain snags, kind of in 2023.
All right. We are at the top of the hour. I'll ask everyone for their last thoughts. What's the one thing the audience should take away from this? And I think I'm going to put Andrea on the spot first. I'm going to go to Stephanie. It's part of the new cruelty, Andrea. So I'll let you have an unrehearsed question. What do you think? What's the one thing that retailers should take away?
I think it's, it's be prepared, have a plan and a backup plan, that's, I mean, it sounds so basic, but it's so true.
But stick to the basics as well. I think that was one of your other big messages.
Yeah.
Stephanie, anything to add to that?
I think being prepared and then also obviously rallying the team behind that and the goals that you have and celebrating the wins along the way to keep keep everyone engaged throughout this busy time frame.
Sucharita, from your perspective, what's the big takeaway?
Yeah, I was also fascinated that the poll said that so many innovation teams existed. So I imagine that there are going to be a lot of people interested in things like Gen AI. The only things I would say is, kind of just focus on the revenue generation, focus on the pain points, and especially the pain points internally. Stop thinking about solutions that are looking for problems, because that's where we all run into problems.
All right, Mary Kate, you get the last word.
Great. I think I would focus on priorities and defining them, making them super clear. And not just that, but talking about and clarifying what's not a priority, to Andrea's point about removing the noise and getting focused. It's really important for the team to understand, like, here are the 3 things in order that we are going to care about right now, and everything else, we're just not going to look at it for now.
All right. And with that, we're going to close out today's webinar. Thanks so much for our panelists, Sucharita, Mary Kate, Stephanie, and Andrea, for taking time out of their schedules to be with us today. Thanks to AB Tasty for sponsoring this webinar, allowing us to make it available free of charge for our community. And most of all, thanks to you for joining us today. Please remember to provide your feedback about the session. Your input really does help us make these sessions better. I'm Allan Dick. And on behalf of Scott, Veronica, and the entire CommerceNext team, we hope you have a great week and a fantastic Labor Day holiday. We'll see you back here on September 13th. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much, speakers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.